When it comes to telling your story, I think there's multiple ways to peel a potato or skin the cat. I encourage people to start telling their story via email, just because I love email. It seems to be the place to start for me. But I've had clients that have told their story in blog posts, in social posts, and tell stories in all sorts of ways that I hadn't really thought of, like print newsletters, books, etc., etc. So I've got Roberta Ravella on the call today. So Roberta took part in my Nurture Email Mastery course a few years ago, and I think for a while you did write stories in emails, didn't you? I don't know if that's still ongoing or not.
Yes.
However, I've noticed more recently that you are quite active on Facebook and you tell stories on Facebook. And I've actually screenshotted a few of your posts because I was like, this is a great example of how to tell an engaging story that isn't clunky. It isn't like how many cars I own or how many $1 million I earned before breakfast this morning while the kids were still asleep, because there's more than enough of that stuff on Facebook already. So I think you're doing it in a very authentic way. So I thought it'd be good to just have you on and talk through, what you're doing with this, basically.
Okay. It's great to be here.
Perhaps
I
for anyone listening, you can just talk through a slice of your story that explains who you are and what your business does today.
oh, okay. So I started my career in the mortgage business in the United States, and did that for 20 years. I was in sales, and our marketing was basically printed collateral at that point, right? You hand out rate sheets, you hand out product descriptions. It was pretty bad, but it was standard at the
Mm.
time. So at some point after the great market crash, I was still in the business, and it became pretty obvious that I needed to do some other type of marketing because you're just another person in a line with a piece of paper, right?
Yeah,
So
it's a commodity.
yeah, so I started studying or I read Perry Marshall's book, 80/20 Sales and Marketing, and I was like, oh, marketing. So that was kind of my introduction to marketing. I started doing Facebook ads, which was a disaster because I had no idea what I was doing. And then just from there, going down that rabbit hole, taking courses, going to events, signing up for masterminds. I took your course in story selling, which was great, by the way. It taught me a lot because I am a live person. I mean, most salespeople, most mortgage loan officers, most realtors, which is who I serve now, we're
Mm.
talkers. And so that's so easy to put in your marketing, but most of us just have never been taught how.
Mm.
Um, so that was really helpful with your story class because I can talk a story quite easily, but getting it in paper and organizing the thoughts in a way where it becomes effective marketing, not just what you were saying earlier, talking about how many deals I've done or how much money I
All
have,
of the
or
obvious stuff, yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
I can't tell you how many times Frank Kern has flashed his wife's behind at me and told me if
I was
I
I
just
was
take
trying
his
to allude to
course.
Mr. Kern without naming him by names, but yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. If I take his course, I get hurt. I'm like, oh, okay. So, how do you set yourself apart in the marketplace? I think at last go, there were 1.4 million realtors in the United States of America. And if you were doing the old school marketing, which is I'm a top producer, here are my closings, I just listed this home, you're basically in a pretty big line of people who all kind of look the same.
Mm.
So by using story, as you say, I do a lot on Facebook and Instagram. Um, and now we're going into YouTube quite heavily. By using that story, you take yourself out of a line of people I can choose from, which then goes to price, right? What are you going to
Yeah.
do for me? Whether it's reduce your cost or do all this extra work or whatever, it takes you out of that commoditization. And then someone can get to know you enough to say, hey, I trust her,
Mm.
or not even know you enough. They can just see your values and see how you operate, and they can know, I don't want Frank Kern. I want Roberta, or I want Rob. Or maybe they look at us and go, you know what? I really like Frank Kern. You want
Mm.
them to be able to choose up front from seeing who you are and what they'll get as far as values, strengths, and the type of people you want to work with, as opposed to, the what have you done for me lately? What can
Mm.
you do for me type of. transaction.
I know you said that you're a live person and that you are best in the moment, but I do think that after you went through the course, you were very consistent in the emails that you put out. So I think maybe you're being a bit harsh on yourself.
I do enjoy writing as well.
Mm.
And I still do my emails. I write an email a week, and I always love metaphors. I was just thinking about what I wanted to talk about yesterday, just going through over my head. And I don't know if you remember the comedian Dennis Miller. He was an 80s guy. Well, he was like the king of these super long, crazy metaphors that you had to be really cerebral to understand half of what he said. And I always wished I was, as a teenager, I was like, God, I wish I was that smart. I wish I got everything he was saying in this long, crazy metaphor. But it's such a way to attach people to things that's unexpected, right? Like how you, in your series, what I learned, and then I've just been able to really capitalize on is seeing something that happens in my everyday life and knowing how this thing that happened is just like what's happening to you as your marketing problems occur. And then people pay attention because it's interesting, but they love the switch. We love metaphor. We love story. So it just helps them connect in a way. It also helps them connect in a way. I used to worry about what I talked about, right? Like I talk about riding my bike a lot. I talk about, I'm on the beach a lot.
I was going to say, like some of your bike stories are lodged. So I've not read any of your emails for a long time, but some of your bike stories are lodged in. When I think of Roberta's stories, I think, oh yeah, you're on your bike, you're going downhill really fast. You've lost control of it. You're about to fall off. Like there's definite peril there.
Yes. So I wrote a series last week that's going to go push people towards my YouTube channel, actually. And I was riding my bike to the coffee shop, and some dude flips me off. I mean, he's like yelling at me and honking at me. I'm in the bike lane where I'm supposed to be, and we
That's
had
someone
a little.
from Frank Kern's audience, clearly, but
clearly,
yeah.
There's a little construction, so I have to go into the lane to go around. I mean, I didn't pull in front of anybody, nothing. So that was my story for the day. It's 7:30 a.m. and I've already flipped somebody off.
Good work.
Because I flipped him off. I was like,
but it resonates though. I mean, I've just got back into cycling my bike, and it's because well, I'm primarily a runner, but I think I'm just getting old. Like I've got endless niggles, so I'm like, right, I need to do something. I've got the bike out. So yeah, like you telling me stories like that, even though it's effectively a routine story, like it does resonate. And even if someone doesn't routinely ride a push bike, they may have done at some point in the past. It's a relatable one to tell, I think.
yeah. Well, and everybody knows the feeling of somebody bigger and faster trying to run you over.
Everyone's experienced road rage, yeah.
Yeah. So my connect in that story is to all these big box real estate companies will run you over. They're just shoving leads at you if you're buying from them. If you're not buying from them, they've got the money to flatten you. If you're not paying attention and being in your lane, and your lane isn't where they are. Because if you're a local realtor who wants to be recognized for your strength and values, you're not Zillow, you're not Redfin, and stay out of their lane. They're going to run you over. So that was the connect.
Yeah, I think that's a great connect, and it really gets the points across well. I think as well, it's something that's quite clear is that you really kind of niche down into who your audience is. Like it felt like a few years ago, maybe that was a bit broader, whereas now it's very much local realtors, I think, or however you would describe it. But would it be fair to say that that's become more targeted?
Much more targeted. And I would also say that writing had a lot to do with it. One of the other guys I follow in writing stories and in digital writing says clear writing is clear thinking.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And so
that's why I write, because when I've gotten better at being live, but when I really want to work something else, I write it. I'll even write notes to myself, because that's
But there's something about that, right? Looking at something you wrote and going, this makes no sense. This is so muddled. And it's because your thinking is muddled. So then, like you're saying, I'll do the same thing. I'll keep writing it and keep thinking through it until my thinking becomes clear.
Mm. I
And that's
um
such a great part.
I write at like 3:30 in the morning when I can't sleep sometimes, and in my head it's because I need to get all this stuff down, and then I look at it the next day and realize it was all tosh. But what it did is that just helped me sleep, if nothing else. So.
Definitely. I have sticky notes everywhere. I just cleaned up my desk this morning before I had jumped on, and that was going through a pile of pieces of paper. Like, okay, is this something valuable? Yes, keep. I have
Yeah,
no idea what the sticky note means.
yeah,
Throw
sticky
out.
notes are great. We used to use them at my story workshops where people would write down story ideas and then they'd move them. So we'd put whiteboards all over the walls and then you move them to like different sections, depending on where it was going to go throughout the customer journey. Is it something that you might put in a social post? Is it in like an initial engagement? Is it a more personal story that goes a bit later on? And we kind of moved them around.
That's helpful. I
Yeah.
think the best thing that I learned from your workshop was how to organize my stories, but also that we all tell stories all the time. A lot of the realtors that I work with, they're like, oh, I'm like, we got to use your client stories. And they're like, oh, geez. And
Yeah.
then after about a couple weeks, I'll start getting phone calls. Hey, you got your pen out?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
they'll,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they were going to call me and say, you're not going to freaking believe what this dumbass did. Right. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, I need a pen because we're about to get a really good story.
Yeah, I used to record all of my phone calls, which is well, at least here it's legal as long as if you're publishing it, you have to tell people that you're recording and stuff like that. But there's nothing to stop you privately recording phone calls because I knew that like I was working with a particular client at the time, and he liked to ring me up and just like witter about stuff, and I was like, it's like don't ring me up unless I'm recording it because you're going to write all of the blog posts that you're going to publish for the next 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and you've got no awareness of this. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're a business owner who cares about what you do and you're interacting with customers all the time or interacting in your business all the time, most of the time you speak in copy.
yeah,
You just don't know it.
I don't actually think. I think that sourcing kind of product stories and customer stories, I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I think people do it anyway without realizing it. I think sometimes the stories are just structured badly or told in a boring way, like it's all sugary wonderfulness. Like there isn't enough of a kind of pain point in there or a key learning in there that's illustrated by the story. I've had more trouble getting people to kind of open up a bit and tell personal stories, particularly when they've got a waiting market of people who kind of need to know, like, and trust them before they'll move ahead.
Hmm. Yeah, personal stories. And this is something I wrestle with a little bit. So maybe we can talk this through, right? Like you want your personal stories in the mix, but you also want them to see themselves in your marketing. So there's the whole guide hero thing, right? I'm the guide, they're the hero. So how do you create that flow with the personal story into where your potential client, obviously they trust you more if they can see you struggle. That's just normal. We know that.
Mm.
Um, so how do you
It's
help
difficult
massage
because
that?
yeah, so you do have to do it without coming across as a raving narcissist. Although my wife reckons that I am a raving narcissist and I just hide it really well, which would probably explain a lot about what we're doing here. I was just talking about this loosely with another client before this call, and he is a storytelling client. I helped him craft an email sequence to go out to new potential leads who submitted a form on his website. And he was like, well, I just don't think people are going to read that much. I don't think people are actually that interested in my story. I was like, well, still use it. What I think he should do is put those stories on blog posts on his website and then have an email sequence that's shorter, that's more direct, that's more focused around problem pain points, if you like, but then invites people to kind of come through if they want to and read the longer version.
Mm-hmm.
Just phrase your question again about the god and the hero thing. So you as the narrator are kind of the god or the muse of the story, and
The
you're
guide, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you're Yoda, right? I'm
Yeah,
Yoda, you're Luke Skywalker.
yes.
So it's a difference. I like to call it 1995 marketing. So back in the day when I first started in mortgage and real estate industry, everybody was taught to talk about themselves. If you came to me and said, Roberta, can you help me get a loan? I would start with telling you how many deals I closed, how much
Right.
experience I had, how wonderful my company was, how many employees, that kind of bullshit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now we know it's flipped, right? You don't care about that. The first thing you want to hear out of my mouth is, how can I help you?
Mm,
That's it.
mm,
So in that changeover, it's almost like it gets lost on how to talk about yourself in a way that somebody can know they can come to you and trust you. Um, I use a lot of reviews for that,
mm,
but telling your personal story goes a long way, right? Like
mm.
if I tell somebody that the first time I ran a Facebook ad, I know how much exactly I spent. I think it's $783.42 in 2 hours because I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah. That's called
Right.
funding the Facebook Christmas party.
Yes. Yes. I paid somebody's BMW payment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never got a thank you note. But
Sickening.
yeah, if I tell that story, there's definitely people out there who go, yeah, I've done that too. Or
Mm,
yes, that's what I'm afraid of doing.
mm,
So now their ears are perked. Um, but then like you say, there's the where you can go over the line. We
mm,
can pick on Frank Kern. He doesn't care. And he's shown me his boat, his beach house, his wife's behind, and said, if you want to be just like me, I find that disgusting. Now, obviously,
mm.
he's very wealthy, and other people don't find it disgusting. But yeah, there's some sort of
To me, so the basis of storytelling is empathy. It's someone imagining. It's when you tell a personal story, you instigate the turnings of the storytelling wheels in people's heads, and they, through the mechanism of empathy, they imagine being in your shoes. So this is where the idea of them being the Luke Skywalker in the story comes from, because they get to kind of live in your shoes for a few seconds or a minute or however long it is. But I think that those stories have to be believable. They have to be relatable, which I think is why you telling stories about you pedaling your bike to a coffee shop and being flipped off by some guy in a massive car kind of resonates, because I can literally imagine that. So I think there's an element of like, does it foster empathy with and this comes back to audience, because for Frank Kern's audience, maybe the stories that he's telling do foster empathy, because that's what people are aspiring to. Whereas for the people I'm trying to work with, that by and large maybe isn't the case so much. I also think there's potentially, I think with personal stories, there's two things. One is that it does lend itself to some businesses better than others. So the
mhm,
ideal use case is someone that has they sell high value, normally services. It could be products, but it's normally services. It's high value, and people might not necessarily be ready to buy straight away. So you've got this kind of waiting market where it's high value, but they'll come in when they're ready, not when you want them to.
mhm,
So it's the personal story thing is more applicable to some businesses than others. Which isn't to say that the others can't do it, but it maybe plays less of a leading role. I'm thinking a bit of like Megan Macedo's work, and obviously
right,
she tells even more personal stories than maybe I would necessarily tell, and it clearly has this kind of thing, mechanism where it attracts some people and it kind of pushes some people away. Like I share her work with quite a few clients, and I've got about probably a 60-40 split of maybe 60% of people saying, yeah, that's great, I really like that, and 40% of the people saying, no, she just talks about the troubles all the time, and
yeah,
I don't really resonate it. But again, that comes
yeah,
back to empathy. So yeah, there's two things. I think the personal stories are a good fit for some businesses more than others, and then it's about placements. Like, you can't be the crazy person who puts all these personal stories in LinkedIn posts to people
right,
that they don't know very well, because it's like being the crazy person on the bus who won't shut up talking about themselves. Like, no one wants to sit next to you if you're doing that.
right,
However, if you've got their attention and you've invited them into the coffee shop, as it were, and now you've got their attention, they want to know they think you can solve their problem, but they're not sure they yet know, like, and trust you. That's when the personal story comes in.
Yeah. Yeah, I liken it to somebody may want to see your underpants on the first date, but not very many people. Not very many at all. Now, it also brings to mind a story that I wrote up for one of my real estate agent clients where she had gone on a listing appointment, which is to go to somebody's house and they say, okay, you can sell my house, right? You do your presentation and whatever. And this person got really mad at her because she had told them what the price of their house was in the marketplace, and they were mad. And they said, well, I found some other agent who will sell it for what I want to sell it for. And they cut their commission. And she was like, good. I'll see myself out. So we started this story on her Facebook page with, I got fired by a client today. And she has a fierce client community. Like, she has serious raving fans, right? Her client community put like 50 comments under that story, like, idiot, I can't believe them. I bought, you sold all my houses. We could not have paid for better comments than all of these past clients of hers coming to her defense and like, let me just drive over to that house and tell them how stupid they are because you sold my house, blah, blah, blah. Like, like, okay, we're going to do that again.
Yeah. That's a great point though, because like client stories don't have to be dull, and they can lead in with an opening like that where people are going to leap to your defense, and then it's that visible engagement that provides us the kind of social proof.
Yeah, that was great. I actually ended up pulling out a few of the comments and using them as social proof in other postings.
In other ways, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that your business kind of lends itself to this kind of client story with kind of interspersed or more occasional personal stories.
Absolutely, because there are points in time where it seems like using a realtor is ubiquitous, right? Like, we in the US in 2020, 2021, if you put a sign in your front yard to sell your home, you were getting many offers to purchase it, and most of them were well above what the house listing price was. Okay. So for some people, it's like, I just need to stick a sign in the yard. Why would I hire a realtor? There are reasons that you would. And for me to say to you, Rob, you're an idiot if you don't hire a realtor, you're going to get screwed. You're like, you just want my money.
Yeah.
Right. But if I tell you,
that's the fox garden, the hen house talking, isn't it? So,
right. Exactly. Yeah. But if I tell you a story, if I say, hey, you know what? I get it. I see why you would think that. Totally understand. Let me just say that my client Susie did that, and here's what happened. The contract fell through. The buyers weren't serious. It took her 2 months to sell her home when it should have taken her 1. But you, Rob, you go ahead and do what you need to do. By the way, here's all the information you need to do it yourself. Right.
And that's great, because then you're using the story to highlight things that but they haven't thought of yet, that are potentially going to majorly trip them up and cause them a whole load of pain.
Right. Without me calling you an idiot to your face.
Without me calling you, yeah.
Which is what I was seeing a lot of realtors do. And I'm like, oh my God, you cannot complain about your client to their face and then expect them to write you a check.
The only person that can call me an idiot to my face is my wife. Nobody who's trying to sell me something can do that. So yeah, you need a better approach.
Yes. We had the same thing happen with interest rates. So mortgage interest rates went from 2.5% to 5%, 6%, and 7% in less than a year. And a lot of the posts and publishings I was seeing about this from the mortgage folks and from the realtors were like, pat on the head, it's okay. My grandma had 13% when Carter
in the
was
1980s, it was 23%, and we all ate baked beans for 3 years. No.
Nobody likes being told
it's
that
patronizing.
Their feelings. It's patronizing, and nobody likes being told their feelings are invalid. Nobody. They
No.
like being told, I understand why you would feel this way. This is painful. 2.5%, now it's 7%, and I'm really sorry. But let me tell you what we can do about it.
Mm.
And then you can tell a story. I found Rob a house, and even with these rates, we did this and this and this, and we got him closed, and his wife and kids moved in yesterday. And I went over and baby Hugo's in the backyard riding his bike.
Mm.
Or I can call you an idiot to your face.
I mean, that story about you found a property for Rob and baby Hugo's in his backyard riding his bike, I would argue there needs to be some kind of down in the story as well. You know, when you tell these stories, and it's like it's all like, I think when people are crafting them, there has to be at least a single point of down, which could be a problem that they had or something that didn't go right, because then that also establishes trust in the story.
Yes. So it takes you back out of Pollyanna mode, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Like even saying, you know, if I'm telling the story, Rob and baby Hugo, right? When Rob came to me to purchase a home, he was devastated to find out, or he was really angry with himself to find out that he'd missed the window of these crazy low interest rate, this free money window.
Yeah, or he didn't. He decided not to fix his mortgage rates at that rate. However,
And now he feels like an idiot.
Yes.
Whatever you want to say, right? Yeah.
Mm.
The other thing I threw in a bunch there that really worked that we're still using is to pick a different foil. So instead of picking you as the foil or the client story as the foil, we were picking something that all the clients hate.
Right.
So I have one agent. We did it two different ways. I had one agent that her people don't like the highly educated professorial types telling them about studies and market trends. They think they're full of shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we blamed all the objections on the Harvard professor who was on the news, and he said this, and he doesn't know anything about you. I know everything about what's happening in your market, in our market, right? So kind of separating the foil, the person to have the anger, and then I'm pulling you on my side.
Yeah, it's a different approach. It's almost like Perry's Swiss Army knife approach, isn't it? Where you're thinking about something that is in the realm of consciousness that everyone despises and drawing attention to that instead.
Yes. And you need to know who your person's foil is, because for some other people, they're all about the professor and they're reading the study and they want to know what they think and the forecaster. So you need to pick the other foil. The other lady, her people are big into fake news. Like they hate the fake news. So we use the fake news constantly. Like any sort of objection that comes up, right? Prices are going to crash. Hey, the fake news said that. Let me tell you what's really going on. And then we use a story of a client that she sold their house in 2 days. Something of that nature, just to keep it current feeling, but also have the objection. Like I'm showing you this objection is wrong, but I'm throwing it on somebody you already don't like.
Do you ever go through Perry's Swiss Army knife relationships tool with your clients?
I haven't. I've gone through with the USP tool, but not the relationship tool. I probably should do.
I still use it with mine. I think it's a great way to get people to think about, especially when you pull in, if there's a few different people that you're speaking to, if you can pull them in and do it as a group exercise. So, well, just for anyone listening, what the tool does is, rather than just getting you to talk about you and your products and your offer or your property or whatever it is, or just talking about the client that you're trying to find and what they need, it encourages people to think about, well, for the customer, what do they love? What do they hate? Is there a best friend in the decision-making process? Is there a worst enemy? And the worst enemy could be a thing. So like if I was selling, let's say if I was selling Google ad services, then obviously, I mean, let's just take it back to Facebook before, when you spent $780. So like the worst enemy is Facebook. In fact, you know what? The worst enemy is Facebook support, because they are,
oh God,
they are the lowest of the low. And anyone who has ever run Facebook ads and try to contact support will know that if you start off a story and you're using Facebook support as your foil, that's a great attention grab for the right person.
Absolutely. Well, that goes back to that empathy thing, right?
Yeah.
That thing that you've wrestled with. And you say that about the love hate. I do the love hate with my clients. What do they love and what do they hate? What did their best clients love and hate? So we can I have that on file for them. It also gets their juices flowing.
Yeah.
Of thinking about my one client, all of her clients love football. She's in Texas. American football. They love American football. So we use that heavily. They are the ones that hate the professor people. So we use that heavily, right? Like that love hate to know.
Yeah.
Yes. Such a good tool.
I used to like your bicycle stories more than your baseball stories, but that's just because I don't watch baseball. But yeah, I also remember that you did write about that.
Yes. I think
but if you got a client base that loves baseball, it's an obvious an easy place to start, I think.
It is. It also helps
I'm not American, so I'm infinitely less likely to like baseball. I'm not the person that you're trying to reach here.
No.
So yeah.
No, but my sister and I were always the people who would go to the pub, go to the bar to watch sports, and some girl would sit next to us and go, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. I hate sports." And we're like, "Ugh, can you just shut up? We're watching the sports."
I couldn't possibly drink beer out of a pint glass.
Right. So it's that differentiator again, right? It's that signal off, signal on. If you can't even read a story about sports, you're like, "Oh God, I hate this." We're more than likely you and I aren't going to click. Right. It
didn't put me off. It didn't put me off.
Right.
And I'm a sports fan. I watch a lot of rugby league. I actually watch Aussie. I'm probably the only person in the UK that watches Aussie rules football. So it did resonate. And I think it's also the thing where if you're telling a range of personal stories, some of them will resonate with some segments of your audience and some of them just won't. But as soon as if I read a story that just doesn't resonate, it's not like I tip the table upside down and throw the laptop across the room and go, "Damn it, Roberta, I'm going to unsubscribe." I just skip over it. I mean, if it's 5 in a row about baseball, I'll probably be a bit like,
this isn't for me.
Yeah.
But if you're the kind of person who wants everything to be serious, right? Like I'll get back to the mortgage industry. There were the kind of folks in the mortgage industry that everything was about hard work, very serious. This needs to be serious. It needs to be hard. Yeah, you need to be dedicated. I hate hustle and grind culture. Hate it. And I see people on social media in that business talking about these things and they subscribe to it. And that's fine. It's their life, not mine, right? If that's what they want to do. But I know this isn't my segment.
No.
I just know if you need to tell me that you're working Sunday night at 10 p.m. and you are proud of it, we're not gonna.
Here's a photo of me on LinkedIn ignoring my family while I hustle to close more deals while simultaneously destroying my marriage. Yeah, great.
Yeah. And causing myself to need Xanax every day. Yeah. So, and maybe they want out of it. So if they see my story and my story is, fun and light, and I say you can have fun in your business, and in fact, if you're not, we got some fish that need to be fried. Okay, but if it's definitely that off on signal, right? And for them advertising, I'm always surprised how many of them will tell stories that they don't want the person who wants what they're advertising. They're sick of working at 10 p.m. on Sunday, and yet they're telling that story and wondering why they're still working at 10 p.m. on Sunday.
Yeah. It's been locked into a particular narrative. I would say that at least 60% of your Facebook posts are beach photos, though.
Yeah, they are. And that's funny, Rob. We talk about the personal thing and how much to put in there. And so I wrestled with that a little bit because it felt kind of braggadocious, like I'm at the beach every day. Do you know what? I am at the beach every day. I chose this.
I enjoy the Italy ones as well, but that's because I spent some time in Italy, so I can resonate with the ridiculousness of Italian culture and
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if that's the kind of thing, if you're reading through my posts and you're like, who is this person that sits at the beach every day? We're probably not we're
It's
probably not
maybe
the right.
it's maybe not what you put out as the first thing, though, is it? I mean, surely that's what people see when they're kind of getting to know you, not as the first pass.
Sure. And that's also on my social media feed. I don't push it a lot. If you're in my email series, and this is something I learned from you as well in Megan Macedo, what goes where. Because some
Mm,
stories go places. If you're on my personal Facebook feed and my personal life bothers you, I don't know what to say.
mm,
But if we're in an email series together, or if you're in my newsletter and all I'm doing is bragging about, and I've gotten some of these newsletters where people brag about what they're doing all the time. Like it's like, do you ever work? Because I still need to work, and that's
mm,
why I'm reading this, right?
mm.
And I get the balance of things of
It's
talking
not a
about your
hobby.
vacations or
Mm,
whatever, but yeah, there's the audience in context, right?
mm. I
It
mean,
definitely has an
it's not
effect.
plausible if all of these stories you always tell it like you live in this life on vacation. It's like, well, that isn't your daily grind. I think presumably you have a daily grind, or what 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 even is the business? Like
Yeah,
there's a question of authenticity as well.
right. Yeah, I took a course on lead magnets, and one of the big things they said is people buy cheap shit online because it's not believable, because they didn't want to do it anyway,
People
right?
buy
Like,
cheap shit online because it's not believe.
because they
Just say
didn't
that. Just say that again
because
for
they
me.
didn't want to do it anyway,
Okay.
right? If I buy a $15 course on how to lose 40 pounds in 2 weeks,
Okay.
I didn't want to lose 40 pounds in 2 weeks. I'm not going to
Mm.
do that work. I just want to feel like I did.
You just want to feel like you made some progress and made a positive decision
Yeah,
towards doing something.
right. It's the raw, buy my online writing course and become a figure income earner from the beach in Thailand, just like me, in 6 months.
Mm.
It's $8. They're full of shit, but you're like, well, maybe I could be.
I was talking to a recent podcast guest about magical thinking, and it's like that kind of messaging attracts people who are still prone to magical thinking. And I kind of work with clients who have been kicked in the shins enough times that they're no longer necessarily always. I think we're all prone to it, but they don't always think in those terms. Um, so yeah, if you're putting that messaging like that, then you're going to attract people who are still expecting magical solutions from $8 or whatever it is.
Yeah, they don't want to do the work,
Mm,
right? I want
mm,
to I want a pill, I want a wand, I
mm.
want to. I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, I don't work like I did in the mortgage business. I'll never do that again.
No.
At least not on purpose. But you got to put the time in. You've got to go through the paces. There's a learning curve to everything.
Mm, mm. I'd like to talk just before we finish. I'd like to talk about the work you're doing with YouTube as well, which we were talking about before the call. I don't know if you want to introduce that.
Sure. Sure. So this is kind of introducing story in a couple different ways. My story about flipping somebody off at 7:30 in the morning is going to be
Mm-hmm.
part of what you will see printed on Facebook, email, that's going to push into YouTube.
Right.
So here's the stories, what this means to you, and then go, if you want to learn to do the same thing, go to my YouTube channel, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So we can use the story to push from one medium to the other.
Mm,
And then also, I haven't like full on told story, that long form story in my YouTube instructionals. But I definitely lace them in there. I
mm.
tell the story about my Facebook ad. I talk about the story of me cold calling for 90
Yeah.
days.
It's quite
Whoa!
closely aligned to the message. So you were telling stories, but it's quite closely aligned to the message that you're trying to get across.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting. Now that I'm telling you this, I just realized I'm doing personal story that's like something that has nothing to do with it's metaphorical. And then once you get into the videos that are like, this is how you tell the story, I'm telling you a personal story of why this works.
Mm,
So maybe personal, like, okay, you're over here on, and I'm on my bike about to get run over by the man.
mm,
Then you go to my YouTube and I'm telling you use story and this is why. And I tell you why it worked for me or why it worked for my client. So there's
mm.
definitely story in both places, but these are like metaphorical and personal, like riding the bike stories. And these over here are more, this is how it worked for me in business stories.
And I think YouTube is more of a problem solution environment. So I think that kind of makes sense.
Yes.
Like we go to YouTube to see how to do things or to solve problems, to watch, I don't know, whatever it is, endless videos about ChatGPT or whatever the shiny object at the moment is.
Yes. Well, and it's becoming more of an entertainment channel, right? There's YouTube TV that you can get into, but
Oh, don't.
yeah.
My son Hugo watches YouTube Kids, and it is. As a parent, I don't fully know what to do about it yet. But yeah, there's definitely an entertainment angle.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
that, not that I think we or the people listening to this are maybe going to create a YouTube channel for entertainment on the whole. I think we're doing it more for education and education and maybe enlightenment.
Yeah. I have a series I'm working on right now, and this is going to be heavily in my YouTube because you can get so much into the how-to part, right? The education, and that's a one-off thing. Like if I Google YouTube, something I've YouTubed a couple times, how to put the keys back on my laptop keys, right? I accidentally popped off a few of the keys,
Mm,
and I'm not ever going to buy anything from that person.
no.
They just were, I mean, I'm literally, stopping and clicking and stopping and click, right?
Mm, mm,
And we're still conditioned to educate, educate, educate. Well, there's education is so free, right? I can find on YouTube, I can find at Google, I can find, oh my gosh, anywhere. There's a new saying out that I love that if information were the answer, all of us would be billionaires with six-pack abs.
mm,
There's no more information needed. I need it either curated to where I can consume it. And then I say, okay, this person has a lot of insight about what's important, or I need your insight into how to use this in a valuable way.
mm.
Otherwise, I'm just scrolling through TikTok videos, watching people cook without ever clicking through the recipe or clicking
Yeah.
through the, you know what I mean? Like we've got to
Mm,
get past just the straight information into the insight that tells me there are 100 people I could take a story writing for marketing course from. Why is Rob the one that I would?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's your insight.
Yeah, I think you can't just have endless videos and expect people to get to the insights. I was as you were talking, I was thinking of I don't know if you through Perry's group have come across the guys who run Top Speed Golf. I did some work with them a few years ago, but they have a very, very comprehensive YouTube strategy, but it's like an umbrella. It's not like they published a few YouTube videos. There is a huge amount of video content on there, but then they have their courses that kind of the videos might exist anywhere out there, but there's a more purposeful path through the content for achieving certain
Mhm.
outcomes with a degree of support, and that's what you get at the paid level. There's a clear difference there.
Yes. Yes, because I mean, that's a perfect example, right? If I'm a golfer, I can get Golf Magazine, I can watch YouTube videos, whatever, take a couple strokes off my putting or whatever. I am a terrible golfer. So I'd probably start with my drive. It sucks.
Mm.
So
That's what he was saying. Like all people want to know is how to drive it further, how to drive it further,
straighter.
basically. How to drive it further, straighter. That's what gets people in. They don't want to know about being on the green. Putting's boring. Um,
Yeah. So how many? I mean, I bet you would get a million hits if you said, "How can I drive farther?"
yeah.
Right. So if I find his, the differentiator for me there isn't just, him saying, do this, do this, do this. It's more of, here's what we found. Here's some sort of research. Here's
Yeah.
some sort of curation of all these golfers. Like, this is what Tiger Woods is doing. This is
Correct.
what, Jason Spieth is doing.
That's where the story is, because you're picking out, say, if so-and-so's won the US Open or something, and then you've got a few clips where you analyze his swing. So then you're pulling in something that's happening out there and you're commenting on it.
And that shows your expertise, as opposed to just being able to regurgitate some information. Information is free. So then I see that you can do this, right? You've told me, hey, Jordan Spieth, not Jason. Look at what he's done here. Look at how he's standing. If you need help being able to see yourself, we can analyze your swing and, go here. And then I'm like, yes, click. I want that.
Because there was an insight that they were trying to get across with the messaging, and the insight was often like, if you're swinging a golf club, you almost have to go too far to know what that feels like. But that's not a message people want to hear. People want to hear that there's a magic swing secret for driving it straight, driving it further. So they have to like tell stories about that, but then lead people to the insights of like, it's nuanced. You have to develop the feel through lots and lots of practice of when you've gone too far with a particular aspect of the technique. You've opened your stance too much, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, and I will say here, that's an off-on message in my mind, because if you get me there to where we're talking about, I've got to practice and it's nuanced and I'm going to have to, I'm out. I'm out. But
this is what I struggle with
person.
my business, because it's like, you've got to write, you got to be consistent, you got to show up. So,
but the difference is, okay, so for me, I have a set of golf clubs that are 20 years old. I am not their client. I may click on that and watch that video because I'm going to a charity golf tournament and my swing sucks. And I'm like, you want me to blah, blah, blah? I'm not doing it. Now, if I'm a serious golfer and I'm like, yeah, I know it's nuanced. I've practiced so much and it's not working. And they're telling me what I already know, but they're telling me, come here and then I'm going. And then I'm going to put some money down and then I'm going to do what they say. So good that you off messaged me, the person with 20-year-old golf clubs who needs a little blurb this weekend so you don't make an ass out of yourself at a charity golf tournament, and you on message the person you really want.
Yes.
And you're dragging them down that hole and they're jumping down head first, right?
Yeah. And that's a really observant point, because their audience was keen golfers who are stuck. They've got in a rut. And they've been through various things, they've tried various coaches, and they can't get beyond a certain point. And it's because of these certain issues that they have to resolve. Yeah.
And those types of golfers will write their mortgage payment to you if you can get their drive to go longer and straighter.
Yeah, golf's a great business. I often reflect that I'm in completely the wrong line of work, but here we are. Yeah. Well, this has been great. We have to wrap up in a minute. Is there anything else that we should add, or where can people find you online?
If you want to see my YouTube channel, I am at Realtor Marketing That Works. You can also find me on all the socials at Roberta Ravella.
Presumably you are the only Roberta Ravella.
I think I am in the whole world.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay, well, I will make sure I link to all of those places.
Yeah. I'll send you my link tree. I actually did a link tree.
Link tree. Yeah. That sounds great.
Yeah, it's nice. It's got everything in it, and
I've got so many links. I put them in a tree.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I never remember my socials. People are like, you can find me at LinkedIn at roberta.5.gil.ravella. I'm like, no. I don't remember what that is. Sorry.
No, I don't think anyone does.
Yeah.
Great. Well, it's been a great conversation. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.